Protect your car with 3W Liners all-weather floor mats. Made from durable materials like TPE and rubber, our mats are designed to withstand rain, snow, and mud with deep grooves to trap dirt and liquids. For a custom fit and advanced protection, visit 3W Liners. That's the number 3, WLINERS.com today.
Ready to bring your vision to life? At Small Rig, every idea, design, and product is inspired by you, the creator. With our industry-first under co-design mode and the Dream Rig free customization project, we unite with global creators to turn big dreams into reality. Whether it's a cage rig or mount, Small Rig's versatile gear is built to elevate your craft. Small Rig, where your creativity meets our innovation. Go to smallrig.com.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Silent Witness, the True Crime Cold Case podcast with Angela. Angela?
Hello, everyone.
And me, Christina. And we're here for part 3 of From Spree to Sentence. Okay, you ready to start? Anything, Angela? Any thoughts on the last couple of episodes?
Yes, I'm just ready to see everything that has transpired because you said it was worse than murder. So I'm really trying to get into this.
It's not really worse than murder, but he doesn't stop.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Murder's probably other than child sex assault, that's probably the worst thing, right?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. But this isn't worse than those two, but let's just say he doesn't stop with murder.
Right.
Okay. So
that's scary.
Yeah. So let's recap last couple of episodes. From part 1, we take a deep dive and we explore his early years and influences that shaped him and the path that led him toward darkness.
Okay.
He had a very tumultuous upbringing and had and early brushes with the law. We, of course, uncover the warning signs that hinted to the horror that is to come. And if you remember, in part 2, we explore the November 26, 2004 murders in Killeen, Texas.
Right.
Richard Tabler and his accomplice, Timothy Payne, lured 28-year-old Muhammad Amine and his friend, 25-year-old Frank Zaid, to a parking lot under the pretense of selling stereo equipment. Once there, Tabler shot both men, and Payne recorded the part of the incident. After the murders, Tabler stole items from the vehicle. And like I mentioned, Richard's not done.
Richard has a whole lot going on.
He's an interesting character.
Very.
So according to Richard, the next 24 hours, in his words, became a clusterfuck. That's his words. So I'm taking. Okay. So again, as a reminder, I'm taking all this from his book, from court transcripts that I could get a hold of, and
right.
Yeah. So after returning to Kim's house, if you remembered, he showed the video. Richard told Tim to get rid of his bloody clothes, which he did, and get the truck cleaned up.
Wow.
And then they took it back to Kim's house. Now remember, Richard stole a gun. Supposedly from Amine. Richard describes this little incident the next day after the murders. He got a call from this guy who he didn't know, and the guy the guy began yelling at him to stop messing with his girlfriend or he'll be sorry. Now, come on, Richard. Right. Yeah, and of course the guy doesn't know what just happened the day before. So Richard's reply is, I don't know her, and today is not the day, basically.
Okay.
I mean, right? That probably wouldn't be the day to mess with him. And it really...
Not him anyway.
No. And it wasn't, considering what he had done the night before. So, needless to say, Richard did know the girl and knew where this guy lived or found where he lived and drove to his
Mhm.
home.
Mhm.
And if you remember the gun, I think I tried to do some research on the gun that he stole, and it's a semi, so it can spray bullets. And he sprayed
Did you
bullets.
say it was a Ruger?
No, it wasn't. It was some kind of
Let me
SK Chinese gun.
Okay. Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he found the house and decided he's going to spray some bullets, basically a drive-by. And he emptied it, and those guns hold a lot of bullets. So he emptied it into the house like a drive-by and drove, yeah, and drove off. And about 5 minutes later, the guy calls Richard and asks Richard if he was the one that shot up his home. Richard just laughed, and the man started
Mhm.
screaming that he was a dead motherfucker. And then once Richard left the area of the home, he threw the stolen gun in a dumpster and drove to his sister's house.
Right.
So that was just a little story he told in the book. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, that's not the one to mess with.
Mhm.
So, now Richard's not done. He's got plans.
Richard looked like he has a lot of plans.
Richard's got some plans, and he's not done.
Devious plans.
Right. But let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Let's meet Amanda Benfield, who was 16, and Tiffany Dotson, who was 18.
Uh-huh.
There's not a whole lot of information on the two girls, and I'll explain why toward the end. But both worked at some point at Teasers. If you remember, Teasers is a strip club.
Right. I remember Teasers.
Right. And
The drop it
Tiffany,
like
go ahead.
I would say the drop it like it's hot club.
Yeah. And so, and so Tiffany, who was originally from California, had only been in Texas a month.
Right.
And she was, and I'm air quoting, involved with Richard.
Mm-mm-mm.
And according to Richard, it was his side piece because I think he was seeing Kim too.
But now, which one was the 16-year-old?
So 16 is Amanda.
Okay.
She worked at Teasers, but I think she changed clubs to the club near there. But I think she used to work at Teasers. I don't know. It's hard to
There
find
was just a lot going on.
right. But anyway, so Kim was the girl who saw the video. So he's apparently Romeo. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany was a pretty blonde. Amanda, originally from Louisiana, had run away from home.
Right.
Again, from what I gathered, they both work at the club. One source says that Amanda had left the club but was working at another strip club.
Mm-hmm.
And you may ask, why is a 16-year-old working at a club? Well, people get fake IDs and lie about their age all the time.
Well, that's what I asked the last show. What is a 16-year-old doing there?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure, they weren't they're not going to like verify backgrounds. You're a cute
Of
girl,
Of
come
course.
dance naked.
As long as you can do your thing.
You can shake that ass so you can make some money for the club. There you go.
Yep.
Amanda went by the stage name Zoe.
Okay.
And
Well,
she had red hair, green eyes. Pretty girl.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So let's jump back. I just kind of want to introduce those two to you because they're going to play a role here in a minute.
Ooh.
So about a day or two after the murder of Amine and Frank, Richard met up with Tim, who had Tiffany with him. Tiffany's the 18-year-old.
Right.
Tiffany runs up to Richard explaining that she and Amanda, who's Amanda, were leaving to go out of state and asking questions about the shooting of Amine. So he was like, hey, I can just if you could just picture it, she probably just ran up to him. Oh, Amine got shot. What's up? Do you know anything about it? Blah, blah, blah.
Last time, now, didn't he show a video?
Well, he showed the video to Kim.
Okay.
And then they destroyed the video. So no.
Okay. So these two people haven't seen the video, just
No.
Kim. Okay.
But they worked at the club, so they had heard, hey,
Of course.
our boss
of
got
course.
shot, killed.
And then if he's not showing up at the club anymore, like, where is he? Yeah.
Right. And so, so they, were questioning him about the shooting of Amine. And so they were all meeting up because Chris, and if you remember Chris from the last episode, he was with Tim and Richard and got out of the car right before the murders.
Yes, the one that should have went straight to the police.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted some drugs. So Richard had said that he noticed Zoe was inside the vehicle at this meetup. And Richard said he'd call around and try to contact Chris, whatever. He basically, I'll get some drugs for Chris. And, he's meeting with them. So he's kind of got nonsense going on.
Right.
Now,
Well,
Richard.
anytime drugs are involved, there's nonsense going on.
Of course. Please. We remember all that fun.
Oh, yes. And it was always nonsense.
Nonsense. Now, Richard had decided by this point he was leaving town. Obvious reasons. But he had one more thing to take care of.
Is this his revenge that he wants to take care of? Remember, he came because he wanted revenge. Is this another revenge?
No, the revenge was on the guy that beat up Mom.
Right.
I didn't hear it. I haven't found anything more on that. So I think that the guy was long gone. That was in a different state. That was in California. So I'm sure that guy was still there. No, but he has other revenge.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Because he's a revengeful guy. So I'm like, that's why I was asking you, is this another revenge thing that he has going on?
Well, yeah. So let's get into it. So on that evening, it was November 28th. So this would be 2 days after Amine was shot. Richard called Tim and asked him to meet him at Fort Hood 4th ID. It's just some gate.
Right.
They met up and left the base. They were headed to meet up with Zoe and Tiffany. So they were going to meet with them. So according to Richard, they were about to leave Texas. Tiffany called Richard while he was en route to meet Tim. And Tiffany wanted to see him because they were also headed out. So they were going to meet up at a gas station. But Richard still had about 30 minutes. He was about 30 minutes away and told them to wait.
Okay.
And they did. The girls waited. And while at the gas station, Tiffany had told them, hey, bring some cocaine. Richard said when they got there, so I guess they met up with Tim, and then Tim and Richard went to the gas station, and Tiffany wanted some cocaine. So Richard said, let's go to a more private, secluded area.
You know that when she said just bring some cocaine, she was just like saying, bring me a burger.
Yeah.
Bring me a pizza. Wow.
That cocaine, that's some stuff right there. But anyway, so they went at the lake. He said, okay, well, let's go out to the lake and I'll give you some cocaine. And so they all headed to this rural area. It's about 40 minutes from the gas station. When they all got out of the vehicle, Richard remembers it was kind of chilly, which this is November. So in Texas, it's
chilly.
Yeah. And it's typical weather. But Tiffany begins telling Richard about visiting Zoe's or Amanda's grandmother in another state. And Richard states he was not really listening. So if you remember, Richard had some things to take care of.
Right.
Yeah. So, he doesn't have his mind on her nonsense she's speaking.
Okay. I'm sure he got a whole lot of things. He's a murderer. He's already murdered someone. He's thinking about the next victim. Okay.
Yeah. He wants to get out of town. Okay. So Zoe went back to the vehicle that they were in. They were in a Jeep. I don't know what kind, but and Tiffany walked over and gave Richard a hug and a kiss, like they were saying goodbye.
Okay.
According to his report, she held on to him like she knew something was going to happen. So she just gave him an extra long,
like a premonition.
Yeah, gave him an extra long hug. He pushed her away and told her to leave, but according to him, she didn't leave fast enough.
Oh.
Once she got inside the Jeep, and remember, Amanda's already in the Jeep. Zoe's already in the Jeep. Tim was getting into their vehicle. So he was getting into the other vehicle.
Okay.
at the same time. Um, Richard stepped to the driver's side where Tiffany was sitting and pulls out a 9mm Ruger from his belt and shot her multiple times.
What? Wait. He shot Zoe?
Um, he shot Tiffany.
Uh,
She's in the driver's seat.
okay.
Tiffany's in the yeah.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. So let me picture. She's in a driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
Zoe gets on the other side, right?
Zoe's already in the vehicle. She had gotten in the vehicle a few minutes earlier because she was chilly, whatever. So she's in the passenger side.
Okay.
He steps to the driver's side where Tiffany was sitting, pulls out his 9mm from his belt, shot her.
Right.
Just shot her multiple times.
But why? What?
And then
Make it make sense.
And then turned the gun towards Zoe and shot her multiple times. He emptied the gun on both of them. Yeah.
Is it because they knew or they commented about it?
Yeah. Richard then went into his vehicle and drove away. Richard also notes that that the look Tiffany gave him right before he shot her as he's pulling the gun was sadness and fear.
He's just heartless. Heartless.
Yep.
His dad was right from the get-go.
Yeah. Listen.
His dad had a premonition.
He's like, I don't need anything to do with this.
His dad said, no, his dad had a premonition. I mean, he knew.
Yeah. So, according to investigators, he lured Tiffany and Zoe to the remote area with the promise of cocaine, shot them because they were going to, they were telling.
They knew too much.
Yeah, they were telling that Richard had killed Amine. So they were talking.
Ugh.
I don't think he admitted it to them, but I think they were just asking questions and talking. Now, also according to investigators, Richard had a hit list of about 12 people.
Oh my gracious.
So they were mostly from the Teasers Club. This was revenge for not allowing him to go back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It all began with a simple idea, cutting handles off old ski sticks to create better pull-up bars. This sparked the creation of the revolutionary Angles 90 handles. After testing over 70 prototypes with 300 athletes, our patented handles were launched in 2018. We continue to push the boundaries of strength training. Join us in making your training more natural and effective. Visit angles90.com to learn more and revolutionize your workout.
Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com.
What? I mean, he couldn't even just say, hey, let me go to the club.
Right. Because there's another club that shared the same parking lot.
I just don't understand.
Yeah. Crazy.
But remember how he grew up?
Listen, that's not an excuse.
Well,
you gotta get
no. I'm talking about he was just a dysfunctional, creepy guy that we established earlier.
Yeah, of course, 100%. So the bodies of Amanda and Tiffany were discovered that same evening. He had killed them earlier, and they were discovered a few hours later. The sad part is it took time to identify Amanda, or at least this is what the police released to the press.
The way he shot her?
No, just because she was a runaway and probably had a fake ID with a fake name, and it just took time to identify her. Likely, and they didn't. But again, the police, we know how the police may not release information, and because she was a minor, maybe they didn't release it right away.
Yes.
So that could be it too. Regardless, some reports I read that basically Amanda, was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was just with Tiffany.
Just like Frank. Remember the other guy that was driving?
Yep.
that he was driving to, and he was driving, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time when Richard shot him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
You just never know. Okay. So, we don't know. He doesn't comment a whole lot about that in his book. And again,
Mhm.
I have some thoughts on that book here in a little bit. So Bell County was investigating the murders. We have two more
Mhm.
murders. So Tim Steglich, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he knew Richard, and if I'm not mistaken, did use him as an informant. Remember we talked about he was an informant for Bell County
Right.
early?
Right.
So he was a very accomplished law enforcement detective. He had assisted in the capture of Kenneth McDuff, who
Mm.
uh, is
Okay.
is a Waco serial killer. For those that do not
Mm.
know, yeah, that's an
Yeah.
interesting case in itself. If listeners want us to delve into that, I certainly can, because he's interesting. Okay, but he suspected Richard from the beginning, but did not have the evidence to get a warrant after the murders of Amine.
Mhm. And Frank.
Yeah, and so because he didn't have the evidence and couldn't get a warrant, Tiffany and Amanda were killed.
Right. So that's 4 people.
Yeah. So, additionally, once Richard got wind that he was being looked at as a suspect, he wanted to call the sheriff's office, and he threatened to kill everybody there. This guy,
He just a gangster.
yes, he is. Listen, he's just gonna shoot up the
He
sheriff's department.
Oh my. He just a one-man show.
Yes. Can you imagine Bell County at that time?
I
I
yeah.
think at this time we were still, I don't know. Anyway. And I'm not sure the timeline when this occurred, because Richard doesn't mention that part in his book. I got
Uh-huh.
that from other sources. The whole I'm calling the sheriff's office to threaten and whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
Richard did call them, and investigators knew Richard was calling, whether it was to taunt them or to confess, or he
Right.
just thought he was smarter than the detectives, which I
Now,
expect that's it.
that's probably it right there.
They all think they're smarter.
Always.
Listen, no, I always say that. You're not smarter than me. I know everything. Stop it.
And you do.
But again, this whole thing is convoluted, but they did want to speak with him. And then Richard says in his book, it was a fake warrant and he went in. I don't know. Regardless, he goes in. I suspect that the investigator asked him to come in,
Mhm.
but I also read that there was an arrest warrant for a theft charge. I don't know. Like I said, regardless, he's in police custody.
Okay.
And it took about 15 hours, but Richard did confess to all 4 killings.
Wow.
Was immediately taken to jail. Also, they caught up with Tim. He confessed,
Mhm.
including videotaping the murder of Amine and destroying the tape. Both were charged with capital murder and held on $4 million bond.
Okay.
Both were indicted about 3 months later in February of 2005. Also, just note, again, there was approximately 12 on the list, so we still had others getting, that could have been murdered had they not taken that quick action, the police.
Mhm.
Now, so let's jump a little bit while we're waiting on trial. Richard, do you think he was a good model prisoner?
Of course not. There's not a bone in his body that's model.
Yeah, so he, was in Bell County waiting for his trial to begin, and he had fights with inmates.
He probably, like I said, I just was gonna say he beating butt and taking names.
Hell yeah, let's cause some hell in jail. Let's cause hell in Bell County. Anyway, Richard was angry, and that anger continued in jail. He ended up being the biggest headache for that county. They probably of all time.
Wow.
Now,
he didn't meet the right inmate.
Right. Big Bubba wasn't there.
Yeah, he didn't meet the right one.
He didn't meet Big Bubba. Big Bubba would have
Mm-mm.
handled that.
Yeah, he didn't meet the right one.
Made him his bitch. Okay. So, as you know, but our listeners may not know, co-defendants that are in the same jail as Richard and Tim were are separated and kept apart. They are to have no contact, as we know. This is done to ensure that co-defendants do not compare stories, come up with a mutual, story.
Storyline, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Alibis and all those things.
Right. And according to Richard, he directed a lot of his anger to Tim in jail.
Oh.
The reason,
because he's thinking Tim's going to give him up.
Yep. He figured Tim was going to testify against him to get a better deal for himself.
That's right. State's evidence? Yep.
Richard tells a story about how a friend of his was standing next to Tim. Richard saw him and did the finger to the throat, the cutting. Like cutting. And then his friend began beating up Tim.
Oh.
Richard was determined to kill or have Tim killed. He did not, of course. He did not.
Of course. The jail should have put him in protective custody.
He did. He was in SEG. Yeah, he would have been in.
It.
Yeah, because he was in AdSeg because he was such a problem. You couldn't get him out without him fighting somebody.
Right.
The last story he tells about his time in county jail, he was visiting with a friend who, and this is just interesting. That's why I included it. But he was visiting with a friend who had a girl who had got none of the girls we've met before, just random.
Right.
Who had gotten beat up by her boyfriend. So it pissed Richard off. So Richard talked a guard into letting him use the phone real fast after the visit. Okay.
See there, guard.
Listen.
Guard.
He called a friend on the outside and stated he wanted to have this guy beaten up and a tattoo removed from his body. Apparently, this boyfriend had a swastika tattoo, and he wanted it removed. And this is what...
Wait a minute. Walk that back.
Okay.
The guy wanted it removed?
No, Richard wanted it removed.
Okay, that's what I thought he said.
From the boyfriend who hit the girl. Now, Richard does have standards, and he doesn't like boys beating up women.
Now, what jail inmate doesn't have standards? We all have standards.
Exactly. We could shoot and kill women, but we can't hit them.
Yeah.
Okay. So he had told his friend, hey, I want this dude beat up, and I want his tattoo removed. And so a lot of times, motorcycle gangs and white supremacist gangs.
Okay.
I'm not saying he wasn't a gang member as far as I could tell. But when somebody wants to leave the gang, that's what happens. They take the gang takes the tattoos with them. You can leave the gang, but tattoos are coming with me. Yeah.
That doesn't sound real. It sounds painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because they don't go and take the guy to a laser removal. No,
you heard what I said. I said it sounds painful.
So when the girl visited Richard sometime later, she asked if he had anything to do with him being beaten up in an alley and a tattoo removed from his body. Richard denied this to her, but did admit it in the book. Now I have thoughts. If this actually happened and Richard used a jail phone, and maybe he used a cell phone, I don't know, but jail phones are recorded.
Right.
The guy gets the shit beaten out of him in an alley and a tattoo removed, cut out of his body. He would need medical assistance, right?
Okay.
And maybe he didn't call the police to report this. I don't know. But aren't calls monitored, especially on a capital murder suspect who is causing this jail turmoil?
You know they are.
So maybe he was using the guard's cell phone. I don't know. It's questionable.
Yeah.
The whole story is kind of questionable, but I digress.
And I'm like this, in jail, they can get those phones so easily.
Yep.
And especially now. But yeah, they can.
Yeah.
They practice in being deceitful. So there's no telling it what's going on there. So.
Right. So this ended up obviously being a death penalty case. The DA decided to seek death as many cases involving multiple victims, the DA will, and I've seen this a lot. We've seen it all through. The DA will try one case at a time because they do this. If something happens and let's say Richard gets off, they still have the girls
They
to
have
try.
those other multiple cases.
Yeah. So, this happens a lot. It's normal. So we start with Frank and Amine, and they.
And I think they should do it separately because those were each separate individuals that they have their own lives that,
But they don't do those two separate because it was one incident. So they try Frank and Amine's murders together because it is capital murder. So you have to have a reason. It's not just the murder that makes it capital. So I'm not sure.
But it's the other things that make the other
Right.
the other crime is involved that they attach to it.
Right.
Some of how they do it.
Yes. So on March 21st, 2007, Richard was convicted of capital murder of Amine and Frank. And on April 2nd, 2007, he was sentenced to death.
So they probably, the murders, the robbery,
Yeah.
all that together.
Or they could have done the revenge or the multiple people. I didn't see an indictment, so I don't know how they tried that. But anyway, they tried. He got death. He was sentenced to death. So Tim went to trial too. He was sentenced to life in prison for his role in the murders of Amine and Frank. And this was by jury. He will become eligible for parole in 2044. Tim will.
Right.
They were not tried for the murders of Amanda and Tiffany.
What?
No.
I guess. Well,
I mean, you got to think, because I was involved in a death penalty case, it's millions to try these cases.
Right. And since you already have the death penalty,
what's the point?
Yeah. Right.
And if something happens, because they've already been indicted, if something happens, they can still try them for the girls' murders. But, maybe it's overturned in appeals. They still have that in their back pocket.
Right.
So, but basically we're not done with Richard's story yet.
He has the death penalty. He's in jail. What more can we do?
Oh, we got some more.
It should be an aspect the whole time. So what else can we do?
We got a whole new story coming.
Oh my
next week. So
what happened?
So next week we will go into the part 4 of Silent Witnesses from Spree to Sentence. What are your thoughts so far? We still have prison.
Yeah.
And he's not done. Good gosh.
He is heartless. I mean, it's just amazing that he can have the death penalty, be in custody, and still be wreaking havoc.
Yeah, exactly. Just a maniac, of course.
Right.
So anyway, tune in to Silent Witness next week for part 4. We will wrap it up next week. I promise. I won't drag it out anymore for you. But tune in. And I guess that's it for this week. Follow us on all the social media, Silent Witness TX on TikTok and all the platforms. Angela, do you enjoy this episode?
I did. I'm just shocked that it can go on any further after this.
I know. You think they're on death row?
It should be ending right now. He should be just sitting. What's that show, The Green Mile?
Yeah, just sitting waiting for his needle.
Just sitting waiting.
Nope, we got some fun coming. Death row.
I can imagine.
Yes.
So let's keep it rocking and rolling then.
Okay. That's it for episode 3. Tune in next week for episode 4 and the conclusion. And that's it. Listen to Silent Witness. Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.